Welcome back to Traveling Dice. This is Jason. We have Game 5 of our Escalation campaign between the Orcs and Goblins and the Wood Elves, as the Wood Elves attempt to defend Atylwyth. In this Escalation campaign, there are 11 battles, starting at 500 points, going all the way up to 1,500 points. Each round, we increase our army size by 100 points. This is our 900-point round. In addition to increasing the army by 100 points, each player can also swap out 20% of their army. For this round, I added the Armor of Destiny to my Battle Standard Bearer, dropping the Armor of Fortune. So this improves my ward save from a 5-up to a 4-up. I also added a block of 10 Black Orcs. Black Orcs won the survey of what unit I should add. Thank you for those who voted. That was awesome. And I also dropped one of my trolls. In addition to dropping a troll, I broke them up from 1 unit of 3 to 2 units of 1. So in my army, I have the Black Orcs, the 2 trolls, the block of Night Goblin Spearmen with my general, who has a great weapon and 4-up ward from the Talisman of Preservation. I have my level 1 Night Goblin Shaman, who rolled up Itchy Nuisance again, much to my opponent's chagrin. He also has the Dispel Scroll, which hopefully should be handy. Both of my melee characters, the BSB and the General, have great weapons. I have the Doom Diver, a block of 12, Savage Orc Biggins with additional hand weapon, and the Goblin Wolf Chariot. Taking a look at my opponent's army for the 900-point round, he has added a Tree Man, and that's an old school Tree Man. I know some of you might be used to the more recent plastic ones, but this is an older version. So not quite as tall, but super cool metal model. He's got the Tree Man in there at 900 points, so I got to deal with that guy. He had to drop some stuff, so he dropped his Eagle. He did drop a Treekin Champion, and that forced him to combine those 2 units of Treekin into 1 unit of 5. He dropped 3 Dryads. In addition to adding the Tree Man, he also added the Iron Curse icon on his level 2 Spellsinger. His level 2 Spellsinger is staying on fire. He's really enjoying the fire magic. He rolled up Fireball and the Cage spell, the number 5 spell. And he added a champion to his archers. So all of his units have champions, including the Dryads and the Treekin. The terrain that we'll be placing includes the 2 regular hills. We have a piece of Impassable, which is a little skull monument there. We're going to be using the Sorcerer Portal, so this should be interesting. It casts out a random spell at the closest unit every magic phase, and they range from really, really bad to really, really good. So that might have a big impact on the game here. And we have 2 forests. One of the forests will be a mysterious forest, and then the other forest will be placed by the Wood Elf player. And we'll show you where we're at after deployment. All right, so we finished deployment, and we have in my deployment zone an ordinary hill. Off towards my right flank, a mysterious forest. In the middle of the table, but on my absolute right flank, we have the Sorcerer's Portal. Now, this thing doesn't really have a range limit, so this is still going to be a factor for sure. The impassable terrain got placed in the corner there. Ordinary hill in my opponent's deployment zone. And then we have the Wood Elf hill over there. So looking at my battle line, I have the Troll on my left flank, Doom Diver placed on the hill. Opposite the Dryads, we have my Black Orc unit as well as my Night Goblin unit. Opposite the Dryads. Towards the center here, I have another Troll and my Chariot with my Savage Orcs. And these are really directly across from my opponent's Tree Man. So in the center of my opponent's deployment, he has his Tree Man with his Dryads, the Treekin behind, and in the corner he has his archer unit with his Spellsinger. And my opponent won the roll to go first, so we're going over to the top of turn 1. We just finished up the top of turn 1. The Tree Man, just undaunted by my army, made a full march forward. The Treekin followed suit, the Dryads shimmied over just a little bit, and the archers, not surprisingly, held pat there in the corner. We had a kind of devastating magic phase over here for the Orcs and Goblins. Started out okay, but my opponent had a big Winds of Magic roll of 9 dice total, a 5 and a 4, so I had a decent supply of Dispel dice. We both had a successful channel, which was cool. I got me up to 6 dispel dice. He had 10 power dice. We rolled the Sorcerer's Portal, which the closest unit was the Savage Orcs, and they got Wild Form on them, +1 strength, +1 toughness, so I'll take that all day long. So, decent start. My opponent threw 6 dice at a boosted Fireball on the Night Goblin unit here. And, you know, he rolled well. He had a total of 23. I decided, you can kill a few goblins. I expected about 6 to die, so I let it through, and 6 goblins were killed, and didn't even force me to take a panic check yet, so that was okay, and I figured I would dispel the Flame Cage. Now, the Flame Cage was targeted on the Black Orcs. My opponent had 4 power dice remaining to my 6 dispel dice, and I was unable to dispel that with my dice. So the Flame Cage goes off. It does D6 strength 4 initial hits on the Black Orcs, killing 4 Black Orcs. And if I move that unit in my turn, each remaining Black Orc takes another wound. So that's rough start for the Black Orcs here. And the shooting phase, my opponent targeted the Black Orcs, got a bunch of hits, but couldn't get any 5s to wound. So over to the bottom of turn 1. We just finished up the bottom of turn 1. The animosity and stupidity checks were all flawless. My army has developed a sense of discipline here, which is great. And I decided I was just going for it here. I was looking at those Savage Orcs, and they needed an 11 to get in on the Tree Man. They had Wild Form on them, and I'm thinking if I could make that charge, that would just be great. Wild Form, they're going to be strength 6, a lot of attacks. And I decided to send the Chariot in too. The Chariot needed a very reasonable number, and then I just sent the Troll in as well. The Troll needed an 8 to complete that charge. So I was hoping to get several units in on that Tree Man. Go to roll my charge distance, and the Savage Orcs come up just 1 short. They roll a 10, which is a little disappointing there to get so close, but just be off by 1. I know 11 is really asking a lot, but, you know, sometimes you got to just go for it, I think. The Chariot makes the charge. The Troll also fails by 1. He rolls the 7. Would have been nice to have the Troll in there helping the Chariot out. I advance the Night Goblin unit up, releasing the Fanatic, and the Fanatic I send out on that Tree Man with the hopes that he can hit that corner and miss that Chariot, and the Fanatic comes up a little short as well, so he's kind of just at midfield here. We'll see what he does in subsequent rounds. I advance up the Troll and decide to keep the Black Orcs back because I don't want them to take more damage from the Flame Cage. We go over to Magic, and I end up with 8 power dice. My opponent has 6 dispel dice. I throw 6 dice at my Ruby Ring of Ruin, targeting the Treekin. The nice thing about that is that they're flammable. They are going to be hard to wound, right? They're toughness 5, and I'll be hitting with strength 4. But if I get any wounds through, they're going to be doubled because that unit is flammable. So that's really great, but my opponent is able to dispel that. I do get Itchy Nuisance off on that unit, reducing their movement by 3. So those are going to be really slow in my opponent's turn. And we go over, before we cast those spells, we actually did roll for the Sorcerer's Portal. And Sorcerer's Portal decides to belch out a Fireball on the Savage Orcs. Despite my +1 toughness from the Wild Form, it does kill one of my Savage Orcs, which is too bad. In the shooting phase, with the Doom Diver, I target the archers, and I hit and I kill only one of those guys. So, you know, would love to see more damage from a Doom Diver hit, but hey, you gotta start somewhere. In the close combat phase, the Chariot holds his own against the Tree Man. Goes in, I roll a 6 for my impact hits, giving me a total of 7 impact hits, which is nice. And we get a wound through on the impact hits. Great, start whittling that guy down. The Wolves and Goblins, they can't wound with their attacks. They do need 6s to wound, so it is asking a lot. But the Tree Man only does 1 wound for the Chariot. So at that point, I'm up by 1. And the Tree Man is stubborn, he holds. So we're over to the top of turn 2. We just finished up the top of turn 2. The Dryads tried a long bomb charge, needing an 11. I guess I was setting a trend with the Savage Orcs on the Night Goblins. They fall short. They did roll, I think, a 6 and a 1, so they did move up 6 inches there. And that was, I think the Treekin unit maybe shimmied just a little bit or stayed pat. They were really limited on movement due to the Itchy Nuisance. We go over to the Magic phase, and my opponent rolls Snake Eyes for the power dice, which, you know, sometimes Snake Eyes is okay. You're going to have double the dice of your opponent. And neither one of us channels. So he has 2 dice to my 1. We go and roll for the Portal, and the Portal decides to just keep fireballing my Savage Orcs, which I'm not a fan of that at all. And 3 Savage Orcs die, which is just kind of neutering one of my big fighting units here, which is such a shame. And my opponent uses the 2 dice to target the troll with Fireball. Now, I wasn't going to be able to stop it with 1 die, so I had to decide if I was going to use my scroll for this. And I decided not to. It wasn't boosted, it's just 1d6 strength 4 hits. You know, the troll has a reasonable chance of surviving it. He rolls 6 hits and then does 3 wounds, kills the troll. My unit passes their panic check, which is good. And then the archers decide to shoot up the goblins, killing 3 goblins. We go on to the combat with the tree man and the chariot, and the chariot's luck just runs out. My opponent does the 2 wounds and doesn't even feel like he needs to reform because he's in a good spot here. So we are on to the bottom of turn 2. We just finished up the bottom of turn 2. The night goblins pass their animosity, as do the savage orcs, and the troll passes his stupidity check, which is great. The night goblins attempt to charge the dryads, needing only a 7, and I roll a 1 and a 2, so they come up short. They advance up 2 inches. The savage orcs, on the other hand, charge the tree man, so trying to do some more damage on that guy, and they make that charge. The fanatic decides he's going to try to go after my troll, but comes up short, and then the troll runs around him. The black orcs decide that they want to try to get involved. They advance up a full march of 8 inches. We go over to the magic phase, and I roll 8 for the winds of magic. I have 8 power dice to my opponent's 6 dispel dice. And the portal that's been punishing the savage orcs decides that it wants to see them do well against the tree man and cast Speed of Light on them. So all of a sudden, they're weapon skill 10, initiative 10. And I don't mind that at all. We go over to the shooting phase, and the Doom Diver hits the archer unit again and does 5 hits and wounds with all 5. They pass their panic check, but that unit's getting whittled down, which is awesome. During my magic phase, I again target the treekin with the Ruby Ring of Ruin, but fail to get any wounds through. My opponent tries to dispel it, but isn't able to, but no wounds through, and I do hit that unit again with Itchy Nuisance, this time reducing their movement by 2. We go over to the close combat, and the Savage Orcs do 2 wounds to the Tree Man, bringing him up to 3 wounds. He's only got 2 wounds left, which is cool. The Tree Man doesn't do any wounds with his attack, but the Thunder Stomp saves him. He stomps these orcs. He kills 4 orcs with the Thunder Stomp. And the Savage Orcs lose that combat by 1, but they hold. They're near the General's Leadership 8, and they have the BSB. So they do hold. They're going to lose their Frenzy, but they're still fighting over there, and we are on to the top of turn 3. We just finished up the top of turn 3. The Dryads attempt to charge the Night Goblins, needing a pretty reasonable number. I think it might have been a 6. And they roll a 3, so they just go up 2 inches here. I don't think these Dryads and these Night Goblins actually want to fight each other at all. And the Treekin just kind of hold pat. Their movement's reduced. They're kind of got a bunch of stuff in front of them. We go over to the magic phase. My opponent rolls boxcars. He's got 12 dice at his disposal. And I'm starting to think this might be a good turn to use the scroll. I failed the channel, so I got the 6 dispel dice. The Sorcerer's Portal decides to fireball my Savage Orcs again. So the Sorcerer's Portal giveth, and the Sorcerer's Portal taketh away. Fortunately, they only kill 1 of my Savage Orcs. Obviously, you're seeing that more will die here shortly. My opponent then tries to fireball the Night Goblins. And he rolls a 21, rolling 6 dice. And, you know, I could have tried to dispel that with my 6 dice. My opponent's getting a +3 because he's a level 2 and he's in a forest. I'm only getting a +1 because I'm a level 1. I decided to just scroll that, and I know that he's going to flame cage something, and my odds of dispelling that might be worse, or he could, you know, get the double 6s, but I use the scroll on the fireball. He targets the black orcs with the flame cage. You know, I'm not crazy about it, but, you know, he could have targeted the Night Goblins too, which would have been bad. And he rolls really well. I throw my 6 dice, and I just roll poorly for the dispel, so the flame cage goes off, it kills 2 of those guys. And now if I move them, they all take a strength 4 hit. I'm getting a lot of respect for that spell. It seems pretty solid. In the shooting phase, the archers are seeing that black orc unit just getting whittled down, and they target the black orcs, but they don't do any wounds. We go over to the close combat phase, and the Savage Orcs, I'm actually impressed with these guys. They get 2 wounds done on the Tree Man, and he goes over to his armor save. He needs 4s because they're now strength 4 in subsequent rounds. He makes both his armor saves. We don't even get to the ward save. So despite, getting excited for a second there, having a shot at killing that guy, he makes those armor saves. And then he does 1 wound with his attacks and 2 wounds with his Thunderstomp, getting exactly what he needs. He wipes out the Savage Orcs. So on to the bottom of turn 3. The bottom of turn 3 is all wrapped up here. The Night Goblins and the Troll charge the Dryads. The Black Orcs just in their cage over here of flame, just held pat. And we went over to the Magic phase. The Magic phase, the Sorcerer's Portal ended up doing a Plague of Rust on the Tree Man, so his 3-up armor save is now permanently a 4-up armor save, which makes that guy a little bit more killable, which is nice. I did get Itchy Nuisance off with my Magic and reduced the Dryad's initiative by 2, which means they're going simultaneously with the Night Goblins. Might have been nice to have reduced it by 3 and gone first, but, I guess you can't have it all. The shooting phase, the Doomdiver did try to target the archers here, but went so far off target that I was able to deviate it with the Doomdiver's deviation roll onto the Dryads, and only got 1 hit and failed the wound. So not much going on with the Doomdiver this round. We go over to the close combat phase. The Dryads champion issues a challenge. My Night Goblin unit champion accepts that challenge, and that's his reward for accepting that challenge. But everybody else does pretty well in the combat. My BSB does take a wound, and I managed to kill 5 of these Dryads. I break the unit, and I roll 6 to pursue with both units, and I catch the Dryads. He only rolled a 5. So we'll move those units 6 up, and I guess we'll see if I'm still within a flank charge of the Treekin here in just a moment. But we're about to start the top of turn 4. We just finished the top of turn 4. The Tree Man repositioned in that spot there. The Treekin reformed, facing the flank of the Troll and the Night Goblins. We go over to the Magic phase, and my opponent ends up with 6 dice to my 5. And the Sorcerer's Portal decides to do a Soul Blight on the Treekin. So unfortunately, I don't think I'm going to be able to capitalize on that. But for now, they're -1 strength, -1 toughness. And my opponent throws all his dice at Flame Cage. I try to dispel it, and I fail to dispel. Oh man, that's just brutal. I won't be able to move that unit, or if I do move them, moving them is just going to cause every model in the unit to take a strength 4 hit. So it would kill 2/3 of my goblins, which is rough. So I have a decision to make in my turn. We go over to my opponent's shooting phase. He targets the Black Orcs, and he kills one of those guys down, reducing them to 3. So over to the bottom of turn 4. And we just finished up the bottom of turn 4. Kind of a lot going on here. The Night Goblins fail their animosity and they squabble, which removes my decision of whether or not I'm going to move those guys. They just have to stay pat, which is probably fine. It's probably the right play. I moved the Troll in position there after charging the Black Orcs. So I charged the Black Orcs, which are hitting the Tree Man in the flank. They make that charge, which is great. And then the Fanatic goes and kills himself by rolling doubles. And the Troll moves in here. I'm assuming the Black Orcs aren't going to have a great round, and that I want to have something, in between the Tree Man and the Night Goblins. We go over to the Magic phase, which doesn't really matter for my spells because my wizard squabbled. He can't cast spells. But it does matter for our Sorcerer's Portal over here. And the Sorcerer's Portal decides to cast Speed of Light on the Treekin. I would have preferred Fireball, but, that it is what it is. And we go over to the shooting phase. The Doomdiver, I'm really hoping that this guy maybe could take out the Archer unit that has been whittled down to just 5 guys, including the Sorcerer. But he decides to go and misfire. And he's not destroyed, fortunately, but he will be able to fire next round. So, mixed bag. But we go over to combat. And with the Black Orcs, I have 3 Black Orcs at the start of combat. I decide to go additional hand weapon rather than great weapon because that allows me to strike at the same time. And I'm assuming I'm going to take a bunch of casualties. So it gives me 6 strength 5 attacks. And the Tree Man only kills one of those guys. And I do my 6 attacks. I get the 2 wounds through. And because of the Plague of Rust and my strength 5, he needs 6-up armor, 6-up ward. He fails both of those and he goes down. And the Black Orcs overrun, hitting the flank of the Treekin, tying them up. I'm not expecting much from the Black Orcs in that combat, but hey, those guys are at least tied up for the moment. Over to the top of turn 5. We just finished up the top of turn 5. The Movement phase had really nothing going on. The Treekin were already in combat with the Black Orcs. So we go over to the magic phase, and the Sorcerer's Portal decides to cast Soul Blight on the Black Orcs. They were just slightly closer than the Treekin, which is too bad. In all fairness, those guys are probably just going to die anyways, which you can see that that is the case. And we go over to the magic phase. My opponent throws 6 dice, and he's sick of this Doom Diver. He targets the Doom Diver with a fully boosted Fireball, and he gets double 6s. And he ends up killing one of the crew, so he kind of rolls poorly for the 2 wound rolls. He did need 6s to wound in all fairness. And we roll his miscast, and he gets a total of 4 for the miscast Dimensional Cascade. He kills all the archers with the large round template. Everybody takes a strength 10 hit, and the wizard gets sucked into the Vorks, into the Chaos Realms or whatever happens to him. So that problem's solved. Great. We go over to combat phase, and the Black Orcs just get killed. And we're over to the bottom of turn 5. We just finished up the top of turn 5. Night Goblins pass their animosity. Troll tries to fail stupidity, but the BSB saves him. And I reposition the Night Goblins to be in a position to accept a charge from the Treekin. And then I'm planning maybe if they can hold them up, a flank charge with the Troll on a subsequent, on my last turn 6 actually. Go over to the magic phase, and the Sorcerer's Portal re-ups Speed of Light on the Treekin. You know, not ideal, but it is what it is. And go over to the magic phase. I throw 4 dice at the Ruby Ring of Ruin. I only had 4 dice. It was 2 and 2 for the Winds of Magic. And I rolled double 6s, so that's fine with me. I'm not anticipating needing the Ruby Ring after this round. And I don't get any wounds through, unfortunately, which would have been nice. They are flammable. It would have doubled the wounds. But the Doom Diver puts a wound on the Treekin. All right, so at least starting to wound these guys here. Going over to the top of turn 6. We just finished up the top of turn 6. Action-packed here. The Treekin charge in on the Night Goblins. And the Sorcerer's Portal decides to do a Plague of Rust on the Troll, which is fine. He doesn't wear armor anyways. Sucker. We go over to combat. I pass my fear check, which is a good start. The Treekin champion in the center issues a challenge, and my general accepts that challenge. The Treekin just devastatingly kill a ton of Night Goblins. And I only managed to do 2 wounds to the Treekin. My Lord does take a wound, and the challenge doesn't do any damage back. The caveat here is that I'm steadfast, so I'm still feeling okay about this. I got the 2 complete ranks, and I have a rerollable 8, which I failed 2 times. Just devastating. I roll a 6 for my flee distance. Now I'm like, oh, I've just lost the game. And my opponent goes and rolls a 5 for pursuit, so he doesn't catch me. I then rally in my turn 6, and that's the end of the game. Turn 6 is over, game's over. Victory to the Orcs and Goblins. What another great game here. Right down to the last roll, that pursuit roll decided the game. It now stands 3 victories for the Orcs and Goblins and 2 victories for the Wood Elves. We'll see you next week. If you enjoyed this battle, please do consider liking and subscribing. Bye for now.